A lovely good afternoon. You're still watching Millennium TV and welcome to yet another edition of Environmental Focus. Right here on Millennium TV, we're live on your top study quarters on channel 95 and also on our Facebook page. It is Millennium TV Zambia. We are streaming right now. You can catch us and be part of today's conversation, or rather discussion. And this afternoon we discuss mining in the Lower Zambezi as well as mining in general. And my guest this afternoon is from Wildlife and Environmental Conservation Society of Zambia, or rather WECS, Mr. Enoch Mwangilwa. As we discuss mining in the Lower Zambezi, he is National Office Projects Officer. Mr. Mwangilwa, you're welcome to Environmental Focus and good afternoon.
Thank you, Loviisa, and good afternoon to you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
I'm so glad to have you back.
I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back. Yes.
How have you been?
I've been all right. It's been cold, but good.
Is it that cold?
I would say so, but
I don't think we can compare this coldness to, you know, the previous coldness that we used to you know,
to experience.
Yeah, to experience in Lusaka. It's not raining, you know. You look at me, I'm not even wearing a jersey.
I see.
Yeah. But now we move on to a topic of discussion, Mr. Mwangilwa, which is mining in the Lower Zambezi, as well as mining in general. Before we even get to mining in the Lower Zambezi, let us just talk about mining in the environment. Maybe as, you know, an environmentalist, as you know, somebody who's an activist when it comes to the environment, you might want to tell us how mining and, you know, the environment can coexist.
That's a very good question. I think for the longest time, even in our governance system in my country, Zambia, if you look at it, it's like when you talk about mining and the people in the conservation or environment sector, it's like these are two sides of the coin, and even though they exist, they don't want to really, you know,
be together.
Think as though they can be together. Well, the reason is simple. It's just that mining really leaves some very has the potential, and we've seen examples of mining leaving communities worse in terms of their safety rather, and also environmental pollution, and also affecting human health in many cases. We can talk about Kabwe, we can talk about Mufulira, we can talk about parts of Kitwe. These places are no longer the same with regards how mining has left those places polluted.
Chililabombo as well.
Yeah.
I was in Chililabombo not so long ago, and the roads, just the place, the town itself is not in a very attractive you know, state. Yeah,
so that's the backdrop of mining. But when you talk about conservation, people are saying we need these natural resources. Let's keep them safe. Let's keep our water safe. Let's keep our trees and all these things. But what can't be taken away is the fact that Zambia's economy benefits a lot from the mining sector. It employs a lot of people. It contributes significantly to the gross domestic product of the country. As of 2020, there was a 12% clear contribution from the mining sector to our economy. So while environmental protection is important, mining is equally important. So the question is, how then do we marry the two? One wonders whether there's such a thing as sustainable mining. Yeah. So those are some of that's the backdrop to this subject matter, really. Yeah.
Is there anything as sustainable mining?
That question remains to be answered. And well, because we need mining, we have to find a way of making sure that where we do mining, we put in place environmental protection regulations or guidelines or measures, so that we minimize to the best of our ability the impacts that will come, the environmental impacts of mining. And so Zambia, being, you know, a beneficiary of the mining sector, has some of those things in place. The question is, how is that going?
Now that you're asking me, you're bringing out questions, so should I ask you, how is that going?
Yes, so the question is, how is that going? I think that's where now the issue of the Lower Zambezi comes in. So We have
maybe even before we get to that question,
yes.
I would love to understand maybe what are some of the challenges that, especially you people that are working, you as an environmentalist, what are some of the challenges that you face when you are probably working with people that are doing mining?
Okay.
Or if you've ever sat down to discuss, anything with people that are in the mining sector and maybe talk about some of the do's and don'ts, especially in regards with protecting our environment.
Very good question you ask. Very good question you ask. So I mentioned one project that I mentioned, the ZamNext project. That's really part of the goal. The idea of bringing different stakeholders to sit and agree on what will be best from the environment perspective, from the mining perspective, from the NGOs perspective, who deal with social issues, so that we can table down these issues. But beyond that, in every big mining, let me just say, in every mining project, there is a process that has to be followed. Yeah. Okay? Excuse me. And that process involves stakeholders sitting together to agree on what should be done, and something called an environmental management plan is developed, which comes after conducting something called an environmental impact assessment. So this environmental impact assessment looks at the potential impacts of a mining activity, okay, and then develops solutions to counter the impacts so that they are minimized throughout the life span of a mine, including after the mine closes. Okay, so when you sit, in most cases, like you asked, have we had these opportunities? When you sit, in most cases, you discover that the investors or the mines do not really conform to what they said they would do to safeguard or to protect the environment or to restore the environment. So those are some of the challenges, and they hinge around compliance, really. It's just a matter of compliance. The law is clear on what they're supposed to do before they go in and after they close the mining operations. But the challenges lie in compliance from the perspective of the miner, and also the side of enforcement from the regulators that are, of course, government. Yeah.
Right. And do you think, let me give an example of Mpika. Recently, Mpika, gold was discovered in Mpika, and now people are just mining, the gold anyhow. Do you think, in as much as, we were trying to fight for the environment, or people are trying to fight for the environment, do you think the people that are looking at, when you see gold and you feel, hey, I'm going to make a 2 million kwacha out of this, do you think people put into perspective, the damage that they cause to the environment?
It's very difficult. Someone is looking at a resource and they're thinking of where they are economically, and then they see this very valuable resource. They'll definitely go there, and of course there is a lot of breaking of laws there. Yeah. But the question is, how can we make sure that we regulate this? And the law is there really to help guide us this. It's the issue of people being aware enough to avoid just jumping in without following the guidelines that are put in place. And
in as much as the law is there, in as much as the law is there to regulate the people from what they should do, looking at Zambia right now, especially its economic standing. Do you think people would really adhere to the laws that regulate them when it comes to mining, and because they're trying to also, make a living out of, whatever they find, the golds, they want to mine it. Let me give an example of maybe the sugilites, they find it and they want to obviously earn a living out of it and make an income. And when you go to people, especially in rural areas, and you tell them, when they've seen gold, they've seen sugilite or any other gemstone, and you go to them and say, oh, you can be capturing, what is the carbon? There's a project about, the way you can trap carbon in a plastic, on the trees. Do you think people are really going to adhere to the laws that regulate them when it comes to mining and making an income?
Well,
which is faster, though. Let us also put that into perspective.
Well, Loviisa, this is a matter of a country being lawless. You see, if we don't have laws on how and who goes into mining, and people can just do it anyhow whenever they want to, I think we have a lawless country, and then that has potential to lead to many other things, even conflict. So we must be good citizens enough to adhere to what the law says. But like you have said, there are economic needs that people have.
Yeah.
The question is, how do we just make a balance? So maybe let me talk about how the current government is trying to address this. So the current government, in its 8th NDP, talks about this green economy that we're trying to create. Okay, so what is this green economy? A green economy basically is one that reduces environmental risks, okay, then one that reduces ecological scarcities, and also while maintaining rather the economic growth of a country. That is quite complex, okay?
Yeah.
And this is based on 3 principles. Number one, that there should be sustainability, meaning as a current generation, you should be able to meet your needs, but without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their needs. The second is efficiency. How do we do things well without waste? So waste in terms of not wasting too much money, not wasting too much time, and not wasting our effort. And thirdly is that of equity. Equity basically talks about creating a balance between the availability of resources and the availability of opportunities for people. So people that are in rural areas, for example, whose economic lives are not as compared to others, have to be given an opportunity for them to earn a living and come to a good economic status, right? So this government has put itself in a space where they need to balance to maintain economic growth, but while being sensitive of the fact that we need to reduce environmental risks and we need to reduce ecological imbalances, right? Ecological scarcity. So it's in a very interesting space where we have to take a step back actually and analyze which one should be the best step for us to take so that we continue balancing this, avoiding conflict, making sure that we are benefiting from the many natural resources we have in Zambia, so that at least we move together and grow as a country.
Now, while the UPND government has introduced the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment, and obviously this is to grow a green Zambia, as you said, or rather a green economy. Do you think the ministry itself is making enough impact in the country?
I must first say that the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment is a very good step in the right direction. We previously didn't have this, and there was a bit of some challenges here and there. So the ministry being in place is really a very good step in the right direction, and we'll see more of what it can do for us in future, I must say. Yeah, at the moment, there are steps they are taking that are quite good, actually, I must say. Yeah, we are yet to see its full potential, but it's a good thing, actually.
All right, Mr. Mwangi, let us move on to mining in the Lower Zambezi.
Yes.
As WEX, what is your position when it comes to mining in the Lower Zambezi?
As WEX, our position,
or rather, how did you receive the news that there were mining activities that almost started taking place in the Lower Zambezi?
It was quite some very sad news, actually, to first of all hear that the mine was given a go-ahead to go on and start mining. Even worse, it was very bad news and saddening to hear that the mine had already started doing some things in the area. It was quite some sad news. But again, May 2023, to hear that the mine was given a compliance order, it was quite relieving. But we are yet to see what will happen after that. Well, the law is clear on what happens. They've been given things to do, which they need to act on. If not, the law also provides for what should happen, the other punishments that should follow if they fail to comply to what was given to them. So it's good news, but we are still hanging in there, and we are hoping for the very best, that the ministry responds positively.
But what is your position, with regard to mining in the Lower Zambezi? We're talking about a national park. And obviously, we do understand that there are minerals that might, contribute to the economy or revamping the economy of the country. But the area being a national park.
Yes, Loviisa. Should mining take place in a protected area like a national park? So I think no. But here's the thing. the situation is like this. We have a lot of protected areas in our country, national parks and forest reserves alike, which are not zoned. So what does zoning mean? Zoning basically means that a national park or a protected area is divided into sections, okay? Say this part of the national park has very important biodiversity that should not be disturbed. This part of the national park has an important wetland that should not be disturbed. This part of the national park has animals that are endemic or plants that are endemic and it should not be disturbed. Otherwise, other parts of the national park can be subjected to certain activities that have very minimal environmental impacts. So this is the situation in Zambia. Currently, mining explorations, first of all, finding out where minerals are in Zambia is allowed, but that has to be approved and there has to be an environmental impact assessment report provided to show that the explorations will not have high environmental impacts in those protected areas. That is a loophole number one, okay? But because we are talking about economic growth and environmental protection, I think for the longest time, the Mines and Minerals Development Act of 2015 provides for that, and it complies with other regulations that are there. So without zoning of protected areas, it is very difficult for us to make sure that we are completely protecting the important biodiversity and hotspots that are important in our country. This is happening across a lot of protected areas that we have in our country. So if we zoned our protected areas, it would at least give us an idea of which parts shouldn't even be an attempt to say we are going to do this in this particular area, okay? So that is loophole number one. Secondly, there is the need to make sure that there are other opportunities of where we can explore where mining activities.
Not in the Lower Zambezi?
It shouldn't. I must say that I've been to the Lower Zambezi. The Lower Zambezi is a beautiful place, Loviisa. You should visit the Lower Zambezi. It's a beautiful place.
I want to, actually.
A lot of wildlife and has a huge potential for tourism. So the question is actually, we tried to boost the economic livelihoods from the tourism sector for the Lower Zambezi before we said let's bring in mining. Okay, I don't think we have tried to do that. We have not seen any radical investment in the tourism sector for the Lower Zambezi so much that we can now conclude, say, no, the tourism in Lower Zambezi can't sustain the livelihoods of the people. A mine in Lower Zambezi has very huge implications. The way it is currently with regards population, it will drastically change if there is a mine in the area. The pollution, of course, will also be something else, and it will disturb quite the habitats in the area. So there are things that we really need to consider if we are going to say we are going to go by what our law says of saying we can explore in a protected area to find minerals. Of course, if you explore, you find minerals. The next step is you can mine, isn't it? So we have something that is not right in the regulations, and we really need to think around it properly.
Right. Now, let us also look at it, you've talked about the economic aspect of it, and maybe we should try to look tourism as also, something that could also contribute to the economic growth of the country. But mining in the Lower Zambezi will provide jobs for people living in that area. Don't you think that is also another aspect to consider, job creation? Yes.
Tourism can also create jobs, Loviisa. Currently, a good number of people are have livelihoods from tourism in the Lower Zambezi already. Okay.
But would it be the same number as as when people were to be employed in the mine?
Good question. And I think the comparison shouldn't be on the number of jobs. The comparison should be about the cost benefit analysis in terms of sustainability. Remember green economy, sustainability, efficiency and equity.
Yeah.
Okay, we're trying to make sure that there's equity in the distribution of opportunities and resources, but we must be mindful of what will happen to the future generation if we say mining in Lower Zambezi today. So if we put up a mine, are we able to make sure that the environmental impacts will not outweigh the benefits in future? Okay? And who exactly will get the jobs that will be created? Is it people with high qualifications who they certainly come from outside the location, and what kind of jobs? So there's jobs that will be created when constructing roads, when doing all these things in the pre-stages. When the mine is set up, who exactly will get the jobs? That's another question to ask ourselves.
But I think this is something that has really excited the people of the Lower Zambezi, knowing that, you know, the mine will create jobs. Even, you know, the leaders in the area also have welcomed the move, you know, for mining activities to take place, because it's going to be job creation, and the people will have jobs.
Very, very good point you raised, Loviisa. While you say there's actually, yes, you're right. There's excitement from one end saying we'll have jobs and all that. There's also another side of the coin where people are saying, actually, who will get the jobs, like I said earlier on, and what kind of jobs. Yeah. So the sustainability of the jobs as well. So those are questions that still need to be answered, really, if we are going to entirely say, for the sake of job creation, this should go on. Yeah.
All right. As an organization that focuses on, you know, forest management as well as wildlife, you know, management as well, if I got you right when we just started our conversation, how best do you think, you know, the wildlife in the Lower Zambezi can be protected in an event that mining took place in the Lower Zambezi?
Ooh, that's a very serious question, Loviisa. And what we wonder really as an institution is, where is the prototype of this mining intervention that has taken place and has left the environment sustainable and safe, both for the wildlife and the people? In Zambia currently, Loviisa, we do not have any mine that has demonstrated that really we can mine sustainably and keep both the people safe and the wildlife intact. There's none at the moment. Even after closures, although we don't really have a mine that has closed in Zambia, we still leave the pits and all that. Those are ticking time bombs environmentally when we think about the impacts, actually. So we really need to think more about protecting natural resources. When we say this is a protected area, actually, we must leave it as such. There are reasons as to why it was set aside as a protected area. And like I said earlier, referring to zoning, without zoning, we can't just say we are going to do mining in this protected area, okay, without really understanding where exactly the biodiversity hotspots are. And doing mining in the Lower Zambezi, actually, to us implies that we don't think about the capacity of the national park growing. You know, if animals increase in the Lower Zambezi, obviously they'll need more space, isn't it? But if you take out a part of that, then it means these animals will most likely go to other places. They can't go to the open pit. They will go to somewhere else where there will be a bit of some plants and grass. And this has the potential also to lead to what is called human-wildlife conflict. You know, animals now eating from people's fields and all that. We know the drama that comes.
And so, apart from just air pollution, let us also zero in the issue of noise pollution as well.
Yes, there's the issue of noise pollution as well. So with the blast from the mine, it's an open pit mine again. The blast from the mines, all the noise will cause we'll certainly have issues with the animals in the area. And also the effluents, obviously, from the activities that will be happening. It is said that the mine is likely to affect the the Zambezi River, actually, an important water resource that we need to protect. So those are some of the things that we really need to think about. So if we want to do mining in areas, are we sure that we've explored the entire of Zambia and we can't find elsewhere to put a mine but Lower Zambezi? Maybe, you know, those are some of the questions.
Right. Recently, the Minister of Green Economy, you know, Honorable Collins Nzovu, visited the Lower Zambezi, and he went to see what activities are taking place. And we saw that Mwembeshi Resources had apologized for they admitted that they made some mistakes and they should have followed the right procedure. So in an event that they follow the right procedures and they provide everything that is needed of them, and mining resumes in the Lower Zambezi, what next?
I honestly hope that doesn't happen. So now here's the situation.
But they started, working on roads leading to the mining area.
Yes, and that's why we applaud the government for that compliance order. It's a very important step that they have taken. So for us, the big question comes in, say, this company is going into a protected area. How we would have known that they were going to safeguard our natural resources is by their compliance to the set guidelines and rules. But even before they begin the actual mining, they are unable to comply to initial stages. They are unable to comply to avoiding to doing things before getting certain approvals, and just apologizing at the end of the day and saying that they'll go the route of regularizing. That raises red flags, Loviisa. So, in our opinion, then the national park is already not in safe hands. It's not in hands that are able to comply with the law. We needed to see them uphold, that compliance from the initial stage. Then we would have said maybe we can give them a benefit of a doubt.
Right. Mr. Mwangilo, your last remarks as we conclude.
Well, the law is clear about mining in our country, and I think our appeal would be for a look into how we improve our management plans for the protected areas that we have. Forest reserves and mining, national parks alike. This will help us do things that I talked about, zoning. Then we will know which biodiversity hotspot shouldn't be touched, and we will avoid some of the explorations or other things going into such places. Secondly, I think it's good to applaud what has been taken as a step to at least halt this. We look forward to what the government will decide after Mwambeshi complies to what they've been guided to do. But really, there was a purpose for declaring certain places in our country as protected areas, and I think we need to uphold those principles that guide protecting these areas because we need them.
Right. Mr. Mwangilo, thank you so much for making time for me today on the Environmental Focus. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Loviisa, and thank you, viewers, for listening in.
Yeah. Right. Dear viewer, you've been watching Friday's edition of Environmental Focus right here on Millennium TV, and in studio with me was Mr. Enoch Mwangilo, National Office Projects Officer for Wildlife and Environmental Conservation Society of Zambia, WORKS. And we were discussing mining in the Lower Zambezi and also mining in general, in some of the challenges that, environmentalists face with regard to mining in the country. This is where we have to come to the end of our program today. Thank you so much. I've been your host as usual, Loviisa. And until next week, Friday. So to my director, Stephanie, thank you so much for always making this program possible. Till next Friday, stay tuned to Millennium TV and pleasant viewing.